Hey y'all, this is Tucker with Adventures in CRE. I'm here with Nicolle Lee. Hi Nicole, how are you?
Hi, Tucker. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening as well. We're continuing our series on how people got their first job in commercial real estate. And you've probably listened to a few episodes right now, or by the time you listen to this. But when I spoke to Nicole, I thought her story was super interesting. She's landed phenomenal jobs in her career. She had, let's just say, her career has been very intentional. And it hasn't been like some of the other people we've interviewed. Nicole's got an MBA, right?
Yes, from Wharton.
MBA from Wharton. And a lot of you guys might want to know, why did Nicole get an MBA? What kind of job did she land post MBA? What it took to get into probably a number one school around the country. And so, Nicole, thanks for coming on. I guess it'd be awesome for the audience listening if you could interview or if you could introduce yourself. Talk to us a little bit about kind of where you work, where you have worked, and maybe about why you wanted to come on to this podcast today.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Nicole. I graduated from Wharton's MBA program and I concentrated in real estate and finance. I currently work at Alvarez and Marsal doing real estate advisory. Um, and the reason I wanted to come on this podcast was just to share some of the ways that I've been able to successfully break into real estate.
Have you found it hard to break into real estate, or um, with the current interest rate environment, or friends you've talked to? Like, is it hard for some people?
I think right now, in particular, is very challenging for many reasons, including the financing environment. Um, when I was in school, I was lucky enough to have a very strong job market, and so it wasn't as challenging. But I think that speaking to some of my friends in the MBA program, it certainly is tougher, just recruiting. And I recently just joined Alvarez and Marsal on my journey finding that second job out of my MBA program. It was a lot more challenging than when I had recruited on campus for Morgan Stanley's real estate investment banking program.
Yeah. When did you graduate Wharton?
I graduated in the summer of 22.
Okay.
And so my internship experience at Morgan was probably at the peak of when the public markets were doing fantastic and the financing environment was a lot more easy to navigate. And now, after I graduated, I think that's when things started to take a turn a little
For
bit.
sure. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not impossible to break into commercial real estate. You just have to take a different angle. Like right now, A&M, we focus a lot on restructuring, bankruptcies, and staying on top of innovative ways to navigate challenging times for our clients.
Okay, so if you guys didn't catch that, Nicole said A&M, and that's Alvarez and Marcel, correct?
Yes.
What is
Yeah.
your specific like title there?
Yeah. So I'm a consultant.
Okay, and what does that mean?
We usually just go in and help companies advise, and specifically we work with real estate companies on how to fundraise. Think about like your average real estate investor who's looking to better understand investment opportunities or think about the investment life cycle. How do we maximize value? They usually hire us for a number of different reasons, and we'll go in there, we'll work with them over the period of several months to evaluate what the best way forward is.
Okay, and I want to get to this, and then we're gonna take a kind of a step back, Nicole. But like, how did you land this job? I mean, and it's a top tier consulting firm, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would I mean my strategy in general has just been like network constantly talking to people. And then also interviewing well is important, but like in order to get to that interview step, just constantly putting yourself out there. If an employer is not emailing back, following up, asking, I'm still interested in this job and being front footed about what you really want.
So you say network, network, network. What does that mean to you?
Lots of coffee chats, first and foremost. And also not being afraid to go to events that might seem out of your immediate wheelhouse. So yesterday, for example, I went to a real estate tech event right across the street in Miami from where I live. And I was pleasantly surprised that I had met people that I could collaborate with. And I went in with very low expectations, but just going to these things, putting yourself out there, being friendly, meeting new people. I think that's all been a part of my strategy. And it's like, it sounds bad saying strategy. It's also just fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
I like meeting new people. And so if you tie in real estate with that, it's all the more fun.
Okay, so you live in Miami?
I do live in Miami.
Darn, I was in Miami. I'm peeling. I was in Miami last week, and I wish I would have known.
Oh, that would have been great to have met up.
Yeah, I also have friends over there who I want to introduce you to. But
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay, so network, coffee chats, go to events, be friendly. I mean, I like the word strategy because I think people need to have a strategy, and that's what this series is about. Is showcasing strategies like you and like the other people who have been on it. And it really comes down to very similar things. So let's first talk about previous background before Wharton and Alvarez Marsal. So kind of what were you doing? Where were you at? How did you find real estate? Where'd you do your undergrad at? And I guess like why did you
The
go and
whole
pursue?
story.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So right at, and maybe I should clarify this, like right after Wharton, I was working in real estate investment banking. And that was a good segue into real estate as an industry because I was brand new. And then prior to that, I had actually worked at 9-4, which is a prop tech VC firm.
Okay.
But this was all during and because of my MBA. And in general, I think MBAs are really great for career pivots. But even before my life at Wharton, I had a little bit of real estate exposure. So I'd done real estate sales at a small brokerage in New York and obviously loved the deal flow and just getting to experience real assets and showings. It's just a ton of fun. And I do it in Miami too. But I was also
Residential real estate sales?
residential real
Okay.
estate sales. Yeah. And I specialize in luxury rentals.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, then I also was a part of Habitat for Humanity New York, and I was co-chair of the Young Professionals Board. So this was all going on the side. And like thematically, I love side hustles. And I like just exploring new career paths through these side hustles. My full-time job was working in financial services. So I was working at Voya Financial for 5 years and held a number of different roles, but I was just getting a general business background while I was there, knowing that I was side hustling and applying to MBA programs in order to switch into real estate.
Okay. Great. Why did you said something that I think a lot of people want to hear. You said MBA is great for a career pivot. I want to know because like if you break down the a.c.re audience, 55% of people are actively working. About 40% are students, and that last bit, they're career transitioners. And so we actually recommend people go get an MBA if they're maybe in their career for a bit and they don't have any real estate experience and it's hard for them to break in. And so number one, like why an MBA? If you had 5 years at a company, what did it take to get into a school like Wharton, and ultimately why'd you pick that? And then talk about how you took advantage of Wharton, not in a bad way, but like reaching out to more people, using Wharton as a leverage opportunity of, hey, this is where I go, or talking about were you active in the club, going to all the events and that stuff. And so let's kind of break that down.
Yeah, sure. So in general, thinking about why to go to graduate school, obviously the MBA is very costly. and this is a side note, I think if you think that the MBA is too costly, there are a ton of other graduate programs that are not as cost or time intensive. I know Columbia has a master's in real estate. NYU has a master's in real estate. There are so many programs out there. And so like the MBA is not your only option. That being said, I think the MBA is good for people that need a break, first and foremost. If you've been working for 5 years, Tucker, I know you relate to this, you're just tired. And so maybe you just need a career break and you want to hang out with your friends, travel. I think the MBA is really great for that reason. While also like employers at the end of the 2 years probably won't say anything negative if you've invested in your education, and especially if it's at a great university like UPenn. I mean, like you're getting a great education while also getting a little bit of a break yourself isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. What did it take for you to get into the program?
Okay. I think looking back on it, it was a lot of studying, obviously, for all the exams, the GMAT, the GRE. I was also applying to public policy schools in parallel. And so took a lot of time to just prepare the applications and think about your story and how to convince the admissions committee that you're worthy and you'd be a great addition to campus life. And being like so specific about what you want to do. Like I remember saying exactly, I wanted to do real estate investment banking right after my graduate program, and then pivoting pretty quickly into becoming an expert in the space and a well-known name. I think being as specific and prescriptive as you possibly can be is extremely important, because it says you have a vision and you're not afraid to verbalize what your goals are coming out of a program. So I think that's how you get in, is just like doing really well in your prior work experience, getting people to vouch for you. I had 2 very senior executives at my company, at a Fortune 500 company, write my recommendation letters. And I think that helped a ton. Just having a track record of doing well and having other people speak for you.
Yeah, that's good. And then this is advice that current college students can take. So, Nicole, how did you take advantage of your time there?
I said network. That was on overdrive during business school. And I'm so glad I did that, because I had a ton of fun and made so many friends with that mentality. I signed up for every case competition I possibly could, took, even if school was really hard, I went to every single real estate happy hour, got very involved with the community through the boards. So the real estate club board and the Penn Women in Real Estate, just getting active however you can. I think I served on the case competition board or subcommittee. And so there was an ability to organize the events and also participate in the case competitions. Just getting really involved, putting yourself out there, having coffee chats. It's been a pretty consistent theme. And also, I don't consider it work, because I just really like talking to people. So it's just been a fun way to advance my career, but also live my life.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, maybe there's some people listening to us who are freshmen, sophomores in college. Maybe there's some people listening to us who are introverts or have social anxiety. Talk to me about like how you approach networking. That's number one. And then number 2, like how you've maintained those relationships, because I feel like you've been really good at it.
Yeah, I used to be an introvert too, especially when I was an undergraduate at Columbia. I came from a very small town, and moving to New York at 18 was probably too big of a step looking backwards. But I remember being afraid to talk about my career aspirations. And in many ways, it held me back, because if I just expressed that I needed help, then I could have gotten where I needed to go a lot faster instead of trying to figure it out by myself. And so if you think about it from a mentality of like, it's not embarrassing to share what you're passionate about. Like, you should be excited to share with the people around you what you aspire to do, and other people are on your side and want to help you. I think that mentality shift was very important during my graduate school program and in my adult life. And so like the faster you can get, I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Like, I think also it's just like doing things that scare you every day. So like when I felt like that in undergrad, what I would do is like, I'd be like, okay, my goal this today is just try one thing that's going to scare me, and that'll push me to be slightly better than I was yesterday. And it could be anything from social to professional. I remember like joining a sorority and living in the house, and that was like my one stretch experience for my senior year. And it helped me become more extroverted in ways that it's hard to describe.
Yeah. When you were approaching these happy hours that you've said you've been to, signing up for the case competitions, how did you like? Did you have like a buddy system where you're like, hey, there's a networking event. Like, do you want to go? Or was it just like you're showing up and chatting with different people?
Yeah, a lot of times it was a little bit of the latter, although admittedly, I still try to find a buddy, whether it's with interviewing. So for investment banking interviews, I paired up with someone who ended up working at Morgan Stanley with me, and it was a lot easier just pairing off and studying together. And when we were going to events, we would hold each other accountable, because these events ultimately led to a job offer. And then for happy hours, I had friends that were also in these clubs, and I would just text them, and I still text them to this day. They're still very good friends. And I would just say like, hey, are you going to this real estate club event? Or if post-grad, I even still text them and say, hey, are you going to this alumni event? It's just helpful to know people. But then eventually, the more you show up, then you'll just start recognizing faces, and you'll be embedded in the community in no time.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about, you kind of talked about how proactive you were. And so if you're listening to this, I just want to reiterate, Nicole is saying, get invested into your real estate club, your real estate community in your local city, and show up. The best ability is availability. But let's talk now about what kind of like accessibility did that give you? So, number one, like you showed up to the events, but number two, like it sounds like you were on the subcommittees and you kind of took leadership roles. Like, did that give you a different accessibility to, potential employers?
Yes, yeah. Oftentimes, the case competitions were sponsored by big employers. And so it's helpful to just say, like, hey, I competed as a finalist in this case competition, or I served on this subcommittee. And the Wharton Alumni Network is so large. So if you put like Wharton Real Estate Club, whatever your role was, and you're interviewing with someone and they're like, hey, I served on that club, or I served on that subcommittee too. It's just a good way to connect with people.
For sure.
And so in many ways, it created opportunities that way. And also it's just, you meet various professors or government officials. At the University of Miami, there's a professor I know very well because she happened to run the case competition that year, and we happened to win first place. So you just meet very interesting people by, like, again, most of the work is just showing up. I would say like 51% of the job is just showing up, showing that you're interested, and then the rest is really just up to you.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about like networking, coffee chats. Talk to me about your strategy from networking to a coffee chat. Like, are you reaching out cold and saying, hey, great to meet you? I'd love to meet in person. Like, kind of tell me about that transition to an in-person relationship. And then we'll talk kind of about the maintaining the relationship portion.
Yes, good question. Candidly, a lot of my coffee chats happened virtually because it was during COVID. And so when I was actively job searching, a lot of it was virtual coffee chats. So I say coffee chats loosely. It's mainly Zoom video chats. But the way I build that relationship is literally cold calling, cold emailing, LinkedIn messaging, and just stating, hey, think your career is very impressive, interesting, whatever it might be. Do you have 15 minutes?
That was really good. Would you
Yeah, and
send a few of those a week, a month, a day?
maybe it ebbs and flows for sure.
Yeah.
But I would say on average during school, that's all I was doing. That was my full-time job. So like 10 a day, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
love that.
it's obviously slowed down now because I am working and a lot of my networking happens on the job because we're client facing. So there isn't as much of a need, but especially when you're first getting into the industry, I think it's good to just, again, put yourself out there. And it might be intimidating, but in particular real estate, I think people understand you just need your foot in the door somehow. And so if you have some reason or interest and you get that first job, things become a lot easier thereafter.
Yeah. Okay. So now I want to talk about maintaining that relationship. So I mean, you can only work at one company, but you've met 100 people. So what happens with those other 99? Kind of tell me, what strategies do you use? Do you have an Excel spreadsheet? Do you have your own CRM? Is it all in your head? How are you actively maintaining those relationships? Are you pulling out articles that might say their name or their company? Or yeah, talk to me about how you maintain them.
How I maintain the relationships that I built over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was more prescriptive about this. I used to have an Excel spreadsheet and a tracker in my first year of my MBA program. And then things became a lot more easy when I just was natural and built relationships and I just naturally keep in touch and text my friends versus like treating it like a business and transactional relationship.
Yeah.
So I think like the more organic the relationship can become, the better. And so it doesn't feel as forced.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I appreciate that. In terms
That
of,
being said, in sales, I do have an active CRM that I keep as a
okay.
resi sales
Yeah.
agent.
Okay. Because I'm always telling students, like, we have a tracker on adventures in CRE, and it's like every 75 to 90 days, it's like yellow, 90 days, it's red. And these are for students to, like, hey, reach out to these guys when it hits red, or think about it when it hits yellow. Um, Let me ask you this. You're in Miami right now. You had an undergrad at Columbia, New York, graduate in Philly. Um, when you go back, how are you being intentional when you travel? How are you being intentional with networking? Um, can you go there?
Yeah, and like I do have a very clear address book in my email, and there's usually an email chain going on of the
Mm-hmm.
people that frequently speak with. And so if I make a work trip back to New York, those main people that I keep in contact with, like I'll shoot them a note and say like, "Hey, are you available
Yeah.
for a dinner?" Especially in the prop tech world where I was an intern during my MBA program. It's great to just reach out to them occasionally because I like to hear about how things are going at the firm and also any new trends that they're seeing in the market because they have such a different perspective. It's good to just revisit people that are outside of my expertise
Mm-hmm.
because they provide insights that I couldn't otherwise get. And so usually I'll reach out to those people where I know there's an occasion for me to learn and also like they're open, right? Like the VC community, they're always open to talking and having coffee chats.
Yeah, that's good. Um, okay, lastly, and then I've got a few more questions for you. The momentum piece of this. I always tell people in undergrad and grad school, like, hey, yeah, the end goal is to get a job, but really what this is doing is it's giving you momentum throughout your career. I don't know if you're bringing in clients at A&M, but through relationship building, you could have a potential of bringing in new clients. And so how does setting the groundwork like this, in grad school, reaching out to 10 people a day, following up with people, how does it add value to you in your career?
It plays out in very interesting ways. I think immediately after school, like 1 year out, what's been interesting to see is like my classmates will talk amongst each other of like Nicole's the real estate expert, and they bring business to me. Like I don't even need to do anything because I've built up a reputation of being that person. And that plays out in my resi real estate career as an agent. It also plays out in commercial real estate. They'll ask me for career advice. I help them out.
Mhm.
We keep in contact. Maybe they work at a fund that needs consulting services. It goes on, right? So like, especially with your classmates, I think these things tend to really create momentum.
Yeah. Well, I asked that because my background is recruiting, Nicole. And during COVID, every candidate that I got a job for got laid off. And the people who were able to get a job quicker were the best networked.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you have no idea what's happening. I mean, interest rates go up crazy, COVID happens. Like, the people who are the most networked, the best well known, you could probably make a few quick calls and potentially have a consulting job, a temp job, an internship, or a full time job.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to get some students to understand who might be kind of leery of what this does. Um, okay, so let's talk a little bit about we've hit one big factor, which is network. um, let's maybe talk about technical skills. What are the skills that you used, whether it was undergrad, MBA, to like actually kind of get the job besides the um, social?
Yes. And these are must haves.
Mm.
So on the job, you have to, at least for the jobs I've held, developing and maintaining complex financial models, being able to perform financial analysis, valuations, etc. That ability, I think, is something that is a baseline for a lot of the jobs I've held, whether it's real estate investing or real estate investment banking, advisory. They all have that similar core competency of being able to underwrite. And then the presentation, being able to prepare the materials, as well as having good communication skills. Um, these are all kind of like things you need to bring to the table you before you start the job, but also like you will develop these skills on the job, but there is a level of expectation that you're able to do these things.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I feel like, when you're networking with people and having these coffee chats and maintaining relationships, your communication skills automatically get better.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so you, by networking, you're actually improving your communication skills.
Hmm.
And also you'll hone in on like what's important to these employers potentially. And I will say that like while you're networking, a lot of people stress out about like the ability to do the case studies or the technical aspects. Like I do think that in parallel, it's good to study, but once you get your case study or they quiz you on your technical skills, like just cram right before. That's what I've done in the past of like, you're smart enough to figure it out. It's not unfigureoutable. And so just like get to the point where you have the interview and then you will figure it out
Yeah.
and have confidence in yourself and your abilities to do it.
Yeah. Good. All right, Nicole. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Do you have any other piece of advice that we might not have talked about?
I would just say stay open minded about where you can find inspiration. I think I really owe my career to my volunteering work with Habitat and my
Wow.
side hustles. And so, like, just being open minded about your career, even if you're mid career level, you'll find inspiration in a lot of interesting places, especially from the people you meet. And as Sam Zell once said, just have fun with what you're doing. So don't forget that aspect either.
RIP. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, if there's anyone who wants to reach out to you, where can they find you? Is it all right if they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, or I'm also available on my brokerage site. So I just joined the K's Realty in New Florida, as well as Highline Residential in New York. So you can reach out via email that way as well.
Sweet. Well, stay on. I want to chat with you after the recording's done. But thanks all for listening. Thank you, Nicole, for your time. And we'll catch you at the next episode. All right.
Sounds great.
All
Thanks,
right.
Tucker. Bye.
All right. See ya.